Welcome to the HIT Podcast, H.I.T, Human Resources, Insurance, and Technology. I'm your host, Toby Kennedy. As we do every week, we are dropping into your feed with what I hope are bite-sized, digestible, well-curated conversations going on in the space. This week's episode will be no exception. This week's episode is brought to you by Montage Insurance Solutions. And without any further ado, I bring on my friend Lauren Sweeney. Lauren, hey, how are you?
I'm doing amazing. So good to see you. Excited
Yeah, it's good to see
here.
you. And this, last we saw each other, we were in person, believe it or not. People are doing conferences again. People are out and about, and it's awesome. Yes. How you been?
I've been doing amazing. Thank you. We're
You're,
just living the HR life.
I love that. Well, speaking of living the HR life, maybe catch the audience up really briefly on just kind of your CVs and who you are. Who's Lauren?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am the Chief Growth and Impact Officer at Riviera Group Consulting. We do all things governance, leadership development, and strategic planning for organizations around the globe. And it's an honor to be here with you.
Yeah, it's an honor to have you. It's funny because I saw this topic that you were sort of researching and talking on and building expertise in, and I was like, this is really fascinating. Do you think you'd be willing to come on and share? So I'm very excited to have you on today. And it's this concept of soft complaints sort of thing. Talk me through, what are we talking about?
Yeah. So at the California HR conference put on by Pyra, we did talk about the rise of soft complaints. And I think the topic, or maybe it was just me, just kidding, was Christine, right? We had standing room only. I think because, in HR, we do get these sort of soft complaints, right? So it's not saying, harassment, open an investigation, right? We're not talking about workers' comp claims. We're not talking about anything like that. It's something like, well, Margaret gave me a side eye in the break room, right? Or, there are these things where it's like, well, what do you want me to do about that? And then what we really talked about is, okay, as an HR manager, director, whatever your title is, what do you do with that? And then how does that play into your own communication style, your comfortability with leading with intention, your comfortability with asking curious questions? How do you relate to the employee and help them if maybe they're just coming to gossip, which could happen too? So what do you do with all of that? So it relates to you as an individual, and then of course those in the workplace and the culture you're setting up.
That might be the most concise, pound for pound, highest amount. I can just hear the audience screaming, yes, yes. It's like you got 19, yes, she's right, in 2 minutes there. That was awesome. So yeah, I think that anybody that has spent 10 minutes in HR can absolutely sympathize with the gossipy stuff and the Margaret side-eyeing people in the break room. So you're hitting on all of it. And so talk me through kind of some of the talking points or the to-dos or just sort of what the research says.
Yeah, absolutely. So the research really says first we have to understand, okay, what are we being given here? Again, obviously, we want to mitigate risk. We're in
Right.
HR, and you and I are in California. So I think a lot of the people listening to our podcast here are probably in California. If you're not, I mean, it doesn't get more litigious. I
Yeah, if
think.
you're not lucky, you.
Yeah. Maybe New York would argue against us, but otherwise.
It's funny too, because it's a little inside baseball, but we're going to air this in a couple weeks, and today is the last day of voting in California. So I've just had so many people from across the country texting me about the mayor and the governor and stuff. I'm like, why do you guys care so much about California politics? But it's such a thing.
Hot topic, hot topic.
Oh, golly.
So, especially here, we have to kind of hear what's happening. And of course, in HR, we're documenting as soon as we're put on notice, quote unquote, then we're paying attention to what is happening. But once we understand that literally it is a soft complaint, it's not something we're opening a formal investigation on.
Yeah.
Then we have to go ahead and understand, okay, where am I and where is the employee and where is the organization as a whole? What is needed? And so that's where then we get into kind of the nitty-gritty steps. So we're documenting what's happening, and then we are using our emotional intelligence and kind of our intuition in that moment to say, okay, she just needs to vent, I think, actually. So then we're just confirming, Margaret, are you coming to me because you wanted to vent about Emilio? Are we understanding? Are we having the employee feel heard? And then are we empowering the employee, if appropriate, to go back and have a conversation? Or what happens when Sam is coming to me and complaining about Eric, his boss? And so again, again, it's not like a harassment case. It's not Eric yelled at me and thinks I'm the scum of the earth and won't get promoted and all of those. It's not something like that. It's just he copies on yellow paper and I prefer white. I mean, we're talking, this is a soft complaint, okay?
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
not opening investigation about the color of the paper we use in the copier.
That's right.
Then it's helping to coach the employee along. Okay, having them write down. I really encourage you to go ahead and have a conversation with your boss, Eric. How do you feel about doing that? Do you want to have a conversation together? Do you think you could do it? And so then we put on this co-chat. So we have
Yeah.
to understand in HR, are we putting on our risk mitigation investigation hat?
Yeah.
Are we putting on a coach hat? Like, what kind of hat are we putting on? It's not really about us, but it does take a certain level of ability on our end and to be able to do that.
You know, it's interesting because there's that statistic about doctors that face medical malpractice issues and how surprisingly unrelated it could be to the actual quality of the medicine and how related it is to sort of the bedside manner and how
Right.
much time they spend with them. So it's interesting as an HR professional that you're sort of thinking like, oh God, like this person just needs to vent. This isn't necessarily a lawsuit thing, but their ability to feel heard or feel seen or whatever probably
Yeah.
can translate into even, I mean, call them frivolous or whatever, but it's all risk mitigation in a way.
Right. And it helps with employee turnover. I mean, the cost of turnover to organizations is insurmountable, right? That
Yeah.
really does play an effect. And so we want to create a good workplace culture. And to your point, there's this great mentor I had, and she used to say, Lauren, everyone has an invisible sign around their necks that says, make me feel important,
Oh,
make
wow. That's cool. Yeah.
valued and heard.
Yeah. Hey, I really value you being on this podcast, Lauren. I want you to know I appreciate it. Just tease it. What I do.
I
Yes,
picked
that's
up
right.
what you're putting
That's
down.
good. That's good. Let me ask you like a crotchety old man question because I'm just like, this feels like something that a seasoned professional will be rolling their eyes saying like, I don't know. Do we used to have the glory days where everyone was tougher and better and now everyone's soft and squishy? Has this always been a thing? Like, is it generational? Is it those newfangled, Gen Alpha or whatever the heck they are?
I think those thoughts might come up for people, and it is seen as soft, or even when we talk about like leadership development or emotional intelligence, is also seen as soft. In fact, they're even called soft skills.
Right.
However, with the rise of AI, what we aren't going to get rid of is our ability to interact interpersonally. And what we might have just 10, 20, 50 years ago just swept under the rug in the workplace, there's always interpersonal conflict. There's always interpersonal communication. And that's our edge. That's
Yeah.
actually, even though I think what you're saying is, can't this feel annoying, a waste of time? Don't I have more strategic things to be doing?
Right.
But it is also about putting out my expectations and then inspecting what I'm expecting. So there's so many great books that you can read. I'm reading right now 15, I think it's called Commitments of Conscious Leadership. And really they talk about like above the line leadership behavior and
Yeah.
below the line. I'm not talking about like
Is that
ethics.
Paul Falcone, by the way, or no?
No, it's not Paul Falcone. Let me see. Jim, I'll show you.
All right.
This little guy here.
Oh, okay. There you go. Yeah, I was going to shout out. Paul's been on the show before, and he's a phenomenal
Paul's
guy.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Paul's great. It's not his book, but there are so many different ones. Paul mentions it as well, that if you're going to create a workplace culture that doesn't, I think what you're saying, kind of waste our time on things that seem more frivolous, you have to set that culture up. And that takes intentionality and some effort and some annoying, like repeated conversations. But then once you do, it's an organization that thrives.
Yeah.
But otherwise, if we have, like, I love Radical Candor, Kim Scott,
Okay.
and she talks about like manipulative insincerity, where you're just like backstabbing in the corner, and that's the
Yeah.
culture. Or you have ruinous empathy, where we don't say anything to anybody because we
Yeah.
don't want to hurt their
Yeah.
feelings.
Yeah.
Or obnoxious aggression, we just like cut you off at the knees
Yeah.
because we're your manager. So obviously, what you really want, though, she talks about that in the book, is you want to be caring, like you want to care directly, and you also want to give early, concise, and direct feedback.
Yeah.
Challenge and care at the same time. So if you can change the workplace culture, if you have that seat, if you're the CHRO, you're the HR director, and you have a seat at that table, what are you going to do with it? And
Yeah.
so it's just about soft complaints, but what are you going to do to change the whole culture of the organization so it can thrive and we can actually get to work?
Well, what can one do, right? Let's say someone recognizes, and maybe they're even new to an employer, so it's not, necessarily their stew that they cooked up, but they're noticing. What can one do?
Yeah. Good question. So first, if we're newer to the organization, we're listening, we're
Yeah.
paying attention, not just coming in because adoption rates do matter. But then we are deciding, okay, where are the places, what's in my control, what's out of my control. I think a big place that we make a mistake is everything's in our area of concern. So
Yeah.
we lay at night worrying about it. We're not actually influencing where we can and understanding the difference between the two. We just sit at night worrying about the areas of concern, not the actual things we can move forward.
Do you think that just takes like time and discernment, or do you think that there's like tips and tricks for how you would tell an HR person, hey, focus more on this, not that?
Yeah. So on a practical level, like I love a good old Eisenhower Matrix. I mean, this little pad is very basic, dumbed down version of it. It's like super important, then do this, chill, this can wait. The Eisenhower Matrix, if you're not familiar, is like what's urgent and important,
Yeah.
what's not urgent, there's 4 different levels there. So if you can do that inside of what you want to influence, same thing. So let's say there's 15 areas you want to influence as the HR director. Then you're like, okay, but what are my top 3? What are the ones that I really want to go after? And how do I need to be influential? It really goes back to like my own self-awareness and self-management. So I can have organizational awareness of what's happening. And then I can know how to be influential in the organization.
Yeah, it takes me back to what they call the serenity prayer, right? Which like you think of the word serenity and trying to
Right.
like find that and how calming that would be. And it's just the wisdom to know what you can and can't change is a big part of that, right? And I think that I've mentioned the important non-urgent matrix 17 trillion times in my life, and I've never
Yeah.
known that it's called the Eisenhower grid or matrix. Or so thank
Right.
you for that. Like that's awesome. Yeah, because I find that obviously not urgent, not important. Please God, don't waste any of your time. And of course, important, urgent. That's obvious. But like the amount of time we spend in the wrong other 2 boxes, right? Of this stuff, this junk that's just not important, but it evidently is urgent because it's tugging on your sleeve, and you're like, my goodness, that prevents me from getting to the stuff that's truly important. But because it has no real deadline, because it can be just as easily done next week or, God forbid, next month, it winds up, really, I think, dragging down your annual goals, what you're trying to do, what you're trying to accomplish.
And not just with our to-do list, but with the areas we want to influence. So
Yeah.
what are the main priorities for the organization? And do we have like a mission, a vision? So we help implement strategic plans.
Yeah.
Do you have like your 10-year goals with the exec team, maybe for your department too, 3 year, 1 year, and then do you divide it up quarterly? Is there accountability? There's this great exercise. I did not create it, but Gino Wickman is actually the one who came up with it, I believe. And so it's called hitting the ceiling. So you actually take your exec team and you write down what are all the things that are hitting the ceiling? What are all the things that feel stuck that you just like as an organization cannot move forward for some reason? And then you categorize them. Is it your people? Is it your data, your processes, et cetera? It's really an interesting exercise that you can do, but categorizing things in some order of importance and then figuring out now what's our solution and remembering people support what they themselves create.
Oh,
So
yeah.
if you need buy-in, how do we then come to the table with a problem solution and then get buy-in on it?
That's all the time we have for you on this week's episode. We ran a little bit long, so we will pick up our conversation with Lauren next week. Thank you for joining us for part 1. Join us next week for part 2. This week's episode was brought to you by Montage Insurance Solutions, Rula, Excel Health, True Hue, the guys keeping the lights on. We're so blessed to be here. Thank you guys for watching every week. Join us next week. Join us every week. And until next week, make this the best week yet.